Hi everyone, welcome to Ra Online. I am Dr. Priyadarshini Shanmugam, and this session we are going to talk about antibody. And the learning objectives for this session will be a definition of antibody. What is an antibody? What is the structure of an antibody? The different classes of antibodies, their structure and their different functions. What do you mean by antibody diversity and what is the basis of that? Then what are antigenic determinants also? Then monoclonal antibodies, how they are produced, what is their definition and what is their application. And we all have heard of this term antibodies, and it's a very important concept in immunology. And we all know that immunity is having two main limbs. So one is cell mediated immunity, the other one is humoral immunity. So in the case of cell mediated immunity, you have the T lymphocytes, they are directly acting, okay, they actually participate in the immune response. Whereas in humoral immunity, the plasma cells are there, the B cells are there, the B lymphocytes, they get activated to produce plasma cells when they are exposed to some antigen or any foreign substance. And these plasma cells will produce proteins. So these proteins are known as antibodies or immunoglobulins. So antibodies are just proteins, they are not cells, they are components of a cell, or they are produced by certain cells. So they are defined as specialized glycoproteins which are formed in response to an antigen, and each one is specific. So each type of antigen will produce a specific type of antibody, and they will bind to these antigens in a specific and in an observable manner. So for example, if you have an antigen A and an antigen B, the antigen A will stimulate the production of anti-A antibodies which are very specific, and they will relate only with the A antigen, okay, and they will not react with another type of antigen like B, okay. And these antibodies are produced mainly in our serum, in our body secretions, and some of them are fixed to the body cells or to the tissues. And these antibodies are also present on the B cell membranes, and they are secreted by the plasma cells. I already told you, in immune response, you have two types, cell mediated immune response and humoral immune response. And plasma cells are derived from the B lymphocytes, which are an important limb or an important component of the humoral immune response. And some important properties of antibodies, they are produced by the vertebrates only, and the chemical nature of these antibodies. So all these antibodies are proteins. So we already know they are specialized proteins. In proteins, they are globulins, okay. And since these globulins are associated with immunity, they are called as immunoglobulins. And immunoglobulins, they are also glycoproteins, meaning along with this globulin, you have some sugar residue attached to them. So they are called as glycoproteins, and they constitute about 20 to 25% of the serum proteins, okay. So they are chemically, they are protein linked to a carbohydrate. That's the basic thing. So globulin and glycoprotein, and about 20 to 25% of the total serum protein is your immunoglobulin. And these serum globulins can be divided as water soluble and water insoluble. Water soluble globulins are the pseudoglobulins, and the water insoluble are the euglobulins. And most of our antibodies are coming under the euglobulin category, that means they are water insoluble. And one more thing we need to know is the serum electrophoresis, okay, where the serum proteins are subject to electrophoresis. And they found out by that these serum antibodies, they will be migrating in the gamma region, okay. Like your proteins can be divided into alpha, beta and gamma globulins, okay. You have the albumin and then you have the globulins. These are the two main components, and in the globulins you have the alpha, beta and gamma portions, okay, in the electrophoresis. That's how our serum proteins migrate. And this was demonstrated by two scientists known as Tiselius and Cabot. It was found that our antibodies will be migrating in the gamma region in the globulin. So another name given for antibody is gamma globulin, okay. So now we have learned one term known as immunoglobulin, because their antibodies are globulins which are also responsible for immunity, so they are called as immunoglobulins. And since they migrate in the gamma region during serum electrophoresis, they are known as gamma globulins, okay. And any serum which contains a very high level of antibody against a particular antigen, either following immunization or infection, is called as an immune sera. okay, or it can also be called as high titer sera. And regarding the molecular weight of these antibodies, most of them belong to the 7S class. S is a Swedberg unit, it's a sedimentation coefficient, okay. That means the molecular weight is something between 150 to 180,000 Dalton, or it's known as 150 kilodalton or 1 to 180 kilodalton, okay. And usually the heavier molecule, usually it is IgM because it is a pentamer, okay, 5 Y's are joined together. They belong to the 19S class where the molecular weight can be 900,000. Sometimes it can even go to 1 million. So these are known as macroglobulins because they are heavier and they are bigger proteins. Is usually seen in the case of IgM. We will see the structure later. So because the molecular weight is touching 1 million, it is also called as a millionaire molecule. And little bit more information regarding the synthesis. Immunoglobulins, they are synthesized by plasma cells, okay, that we know. These plasma cells are actually activated B cells. And in addition to being the globulins with the antibody activity, when you say immunoglobulin, it also includes the abnormal myeloma proteins, cryoglobulins and macroglobulins. So this you should know that all immunoglobulins may not be antibodies, okay, but all antibodies come under the immunoglobulin category, meaning in immunoglobulin you have the antibodies, then you have the abnormal proteins, macroglobulins and all that. And among these 4, one of them is the antibody globulins.